Vanakkam, a very warm good evening to you all. I welcome you to the Higher Education Forum Chennai. This is the second in series of a whole trail which we have been building up for the last 100 days, trying to gauge and mark the campus preparedness of various genres to take on the global challenges and emerging trends. The first of this higher education forum we just concluded at Chandigarh a day before yesterday. The idea was this higher education forum will next stopover is at Pune, which is on the 31st. And on the 2nd of April, we would be concluding the findings of an elaborate survey which got involved a wide range of higher education institutions ranging from IITs, NITs, other premier institutions like the IIITs, IISERs, then a whole range of private and deemed universities, and also the group of institutions. So all three genres across the country. This was a huge survey which was conducted to gauge and to understand as to what goes on in the mind and what goes on in the whole structure of our higher education system. As Engineering Watch, we had been trying to understand and serve. Our perpetual quest had been as to how can the engineering community per se can contribute to the re-engineering of the destiny of this billion-plus nation. So we had been, from time and again, trying to find out ways and means as to how we can link up the higher technical education to the national narratives. At a higher education forum, Chandigarh, we had got Professor A.D.N. Vajpayee from the Himachal Pradesh University. He mentioned a very pertinent point that the framework for the correlation of the higher education with that of the economy is still in its dormant phase. It still has to be built up in a very integrated manner. So we took on the quest of as to how can our higher education institutions, we have at least one engineering college in 412 districts of the country. So how they can contribute to the grassroots IT empowerment in the form of e-governance. So we have been running something called an eGov program with Department of Electronics and IT and NIC, how our campuses can do the SRS, students can go out, understand the real problems and challenges, and how that huge young potential, that demographic dividend which we are talking about, can be put to service, the whole narrative around employability and all that stuff, how it can be linked up to the larger questions, how can institutions think beyond the narrow confines of academia industry interface or something like that, and to have a rounded view, and also from a national boundaries transcend to the global, I will say, the global trends and global phenomena which is happening. In that quest, we also went on how the defense research per se can be brought in, because the entire Make in India dimension, the core priority somewhere is to create a kind of a defense industrial base in the country, because this is one strategic sector which will boost up where we as a country spend a budgetary allocation of 2 lakh crore plus, 2.5 lakh crore plus. So how can the defense research part of it, the indigenization of small components to our armed forces, which is a major import cost which we bear across, can be taken up? So challenges which can ignite the young minds, which can also stimulate the whole, this community of engineering graduates, engineering campuses, engineering faculty out there. In that quest, the whole, for the last 6 to 8 months, the whole concern about none of the top Indian institutions finding a place in the global rankings. It was I think taken up at forums after forums by the national leaders, ranging from the Honorable President to the others. There are wide opinions about these global rankings, and as a part of this survey also we had vivid footprints we got from the various participants. So in that quest, we felt the needs of India, as we know that despite having a single time zone, we have a variegated mind zones or the cultural zones, and we perceive various issues differently. So we were in the process of curating something, understanding something. In that quest, we were approaching a lot of our like industry representatives and partners who can support us in this exercise and take on this kind of a narrative. So a similar quest was probably going on in the mind of at campus management, a simple quest. They were trying to understand the Indian market, having served more than 2,000 global institutions across 26 countries. So they were trying to understand the Indian market, the Indian diversity of it, how Indian campuses are faring through. So there came an instant connect, and they at once came forward to support and sponsor the entire initiative of campus preparedness. So we put up a very clear thing that we still are in an evolutionary phase where Indian campuses, in the 15 years of privatization which has happened in the higher education space, we're still in an infancy. So how the various goals and challenges are being phased out there. So we also liked, in the process of curation of a wide questionnaire which became the basis of these higher education forums and the campus preparedness survey. It was a 50-pager survey which was where interviews were taken over telephone, and then our entire team went through it, transcribed it, and culled out all the key inputs. And since it was more of an instantaneous kind of an interview over telephone, the top of the mind recall, priorities and goals and the concerns just got recorded in a very, very extremely dominant fashion. I would be showing you some of the infographics, and it will tell you that this is the really wide and vivid scope of India's higher education. I would like at this juncture to invite Raj Mrityunjapaya, who is the Managing Director at Campus Management, looking after the Asia Pacific and the Middle East market of theirs, as to what propelled and how he sees this entire exercise, and from his global experience, the Indian education space, higher education space. So I would invite him for his introductory remarks, and after that we would move on to our first session. Sir.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this wonderful event. I'm really thankful for all of you for joining us this evening, and it gives me immense pleasure to know that you've traveled long distances to get here. So we would definitely want to make your time worthwhile while you're here with us, and ensure that both of us carry back knowledge that we did not have when we got into this room. First of all, to start with, I would like to thank our partners in this Engineering Watch for working with us very jointly to kind of do a very deep dive understanding of the Indian higher education environment as such. Campus management is a global solution provider. We are a technology solution provider for all types of institutions, from private, public, for-profit, not-for-profit, 4-year degree programs, 3-year degree programs. So we provide the technology platform to help you or enable you to manage your institutions a lot better in terms of scale, growth, in terms of governance, in terms of setting up transparency. So we help you set those systems up across the board. So if you think of technology, you should think of us. That's what we do globally. But more importantly, in India, we didn't want to take a solution that actually works really well globally and come here and say, listen, this should work for you, here is a system for you. We wanted to understand the real pain points of this industry, of this market. I call education as industry these days. Academic folks may not think that way, but it is really becoming an industry now. With 34,000 colleges, it's more than actually a lot of other industries, number of institutions there are. But again, understanding this vertical, understanding exactly the pain points, what is working, what are the pain points are. So this survey, actually what we did, over a period of last 100 days plus, was very, very detailed. I mean, Raghu was kind enough to show that booklet to you, and some of you are part of that. And if you have seen the level of detail that we've gone into, it took us about 3 hours or more, in many cases, to actually get through one survey, right? And so it has taken us hours and hours of investment into this to understand the exact challenges and pain points. And to put all of this together in a few pages to summarize it for you, has not been easy either. So this forum that we're doing here, we're going to be talking more specifically around the South Zone abstracts that we've actually established from it. We just did the North Zone abstract, which was in Chandigarh 2 days ago. We have in Pune, we'll be doing the West Zone abstract. And then finally, when we go out to Delhi, that we'll be doing the national abstract. So across the board, we'll be releasing the complete campus preparedness report for the whole country. So that would actually conclude our approach in giving you an idea what we have understood and what we believe are the pain points. Just to give you an idea, some of the things that comes out very obviously, and this is again, I'm giving you some of the data I'm giving is nationwide data, not specific to South. So when we went out and looked at what are the top 5 priority areas for institutions, and the number 1 priority area that came out was actually furthering effectiveness of the faculty. 85% of the institutions have ranked this as number 1. So that is actually quite significant from that standpoint, that this actually comes out as a number 1. And also, they're looking at various institutions have also called out that they're implementing tools, systems, workflows in order to manage this better. Now, when you think about your institution, it's something for you to think about and say, are you doing enough to actually look at this? If this is the top 1 priority, are we doing enough? Number 2 that came out as part of that is consolidating infrastructure. Again, infrastructure here need to be looked at in a much broader way, not just about buildings and rooms and chairs, but infrastructure in terms of your smart classrooms, in terms of your conference facilities. It could be your other resources, like it could include your fleets of buses you may run or any other things. But looking at it from a larger perspective as an infrastructure, again, 80% of the institutions look at this as the second top priority for them. It means there is definitely an understanding that we can maximize that infrastructure a lot more. Just to give you a global statistics, which will be quite alarming and interesting for you. Globally, there are only 21% of the infrastructure as actually being effectively utilized. That gives you an idea how much of infrastructure goes unutilized in this kind of an institution. So it is definitely a very high priority item globally, as much as we see in India, that comes out as a number 2. Number 3 is improving ranking. Again, ranking is a very important thing for most institutions. If you actually leave out the cream of the institutions, which is the IITs and IIMs, I mean, the rest of the, even there, actually, there is a fight between that league. But if you look at a general institution, ranking becomes an extremely important part of it, because that's what actually attracts the right type of students to come to you. So obviously you see a lot of these surveys that comes out, the Times group gives you number 3 out of 10, or somebody else gives you number 5 out of 10. But really, ultimately, all that is driving you is how do we actually go up the ranking scale? Because students who are ultimately the consumers of this always want to see if I'm joining the right institution. Does this institution have everything that I'm looking for? And the best measure for them is to see where they rank among the other institutions. So that comes out as number 3. And again, 78% of institutions look at this as number 3. Number 4 on the list is focus on research. And again, 77% of institutions actually consider that research is a very important area. And this includes not just about getting research activity done, but also about measuring the effectiveness of the research activity, the funds that is being flown, the workflows, measuring the outcomes. Do we have systems? Do we have processes in place to control the fund flow? Do we have systems to measure and outcome tracking and all of that? So that's actually quite interesting as well. And in what we learned in talking to some of the institutions in Chandigarh, in our previous institution, and as the deliberation was going on, is I was quite alarmed to learn how many private institutions are actually investing in research, or making their best efforts to actually invest in research and publish papers and do a lot of these things. So that's actually quite interesting when you think about it, that private institutions as much are keen on driving the research activities as much as on the government institutions and the government-funded institutions. And among the top 5, the 5th one that came out is the enhancing placement. And again, 73% of the institution think I want to find better ways to do placements. And that's again, quite, that's not a surprise to us at all. I mean, obviously, at the end of this, we call that the product of the institution has to be skilled enough to be actually placed in industry, or skilled enough to go on to be doing research or into academia. Whatever the ultimate destination is, they should be skilled enough. And that obviously is top priority for every institution, but 73% of them think that's among the top 5. So that's something that gives us an idea what are the different ways of looking at it. Now those five priorities may not be the same in different industries, different countries. They may be different based on where they are in their evolution. India, obviously, there is a lot of push towards skilling. Government of India has actually put in a lot of effort around NSDC, which is National Skill Development Corporation, National Development Authority, to try and make our youth be skilled enough to get employment. But I think that there is a lot of opportunity for institutions, universities, institutions, to combine that. Skilling is a byproduct of actually being able to effectively leverage infrastructure and not just build knowledge, but have a real practical experience of somebody going back to industry to be employed. So I think there's an opportunity for universities and institutions actually build those skills within this institution. There's no need for actually going outside this to build that. So how do we combine both? How do we actually make this employable is as much of for interest for us as much as it for you all. How do we actually put up systems that are outcome-based, driven towards outcome? That's, again, a top priority for us. So when we, again, came out here, we've been in this market for a while. We actually have about 20 plus institutions where we implemented our systems. But we really, we wanted to make sure that we do know how to address this market, and that we believe that we now, with this preparedness, we clearly understand where the challenges are and what kind of solutions we have to put in place. We would love to, again, engage with every one of you, and through this forum, as well as in future from a one-on-one basis, as well as in future in this kind of various forums globally, or in regions, specific regions, and see how we can take these conversations forward, how we can actually learn from each other's and implement solutions which actually will address some of the larger vision this country is actually going after. We have one of the concepts we're talking about is Make in India and all of that, but I think that there is a lot more fundamental thing that we actually have to look at. There is, when you look at from an employment standpoint, you probably have read this in the reports that agriculture these days have only 25% of people are required to do the same level of agriculture outputs as it was required 10 years ago. So what that effectively means is that machines and automation has actually taken out so many more jobs in agriculture sector. So many other youths coming out of there. We need to get them employed. We need to get them skilled. We need to get them focused on the jobs. There is a lot we can do jointly in terms of building the scale, in terms of addressing the diversity, addressing the segmentation, and implementing systems and technology would be a key player for that. So thank you again for all of you for joining to this, and again I thank Engineering Watch and all of you dignitaries for joining us, and look forward to the whole day evening here jointly with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Raj. Before I move on to the first session, the key challenges and challenges of higher education in the country, starting from the concept of the ages Savidyaya Vimuktaye to a simple focus on employment, employability, skills, linking the higher education with only the concept of employment. So there's a whole spectrum in this ancient land of wisdom. We would be certainly having a great deliberation out there. Before I just move on, I just want to take you through a couple of slides of this massive survey, this massive exercise, not massive from whatever angle, but substantial. This has been the footprints of the campus preparedness survey across the country. It was carried in all the 5 zones, and we got almost equal representation from the genre 1 of IITs and IITs and OPIs in the North Zone, West Zone, South, East, and Central Zone. Quite a widespread of representation. We could get inputs from all the eminent academicians and senior people. On the ranking side of it, as ranking stands, as we said that we did not just bucketize the whole opinion or the mindsets into certain categories. We asked them elaborate subjective questions. So from negative to skeptic to positive views, we could get, there were straightaway rejections from many of the campuses. There was exploratory phases, people were ready to explore, and there was acceptance over there. So the further figures of these would be coming out in the further national report, which will be releasing on 2nd of April. On the placement sides of it, you would be keen to know that there are 49 distinct key strategies and methodologies we could cull out from these elaborate interactions across the Indian academia. And these strategies and methodologies ranged from a structure, process and focus. The focus areas of the campuses were different at different places. The processes were different, how they are trying to organize the placement activity out there, and the structures they have put in across. So very interesting notes which have come out in this report. From the infrastructure side of it, there have been evolutionary impressions from diverse, beyond academics and academic. There had been institutions who are talking about restoring the existing infrastructure, and someone saying that our campus is just under construction. So a whole spectrum has been covered in this survey part of it. On the research side of it, the views have been from defensive to conventional views of the value of research to the applied part of it. There have been progressive viewpoints and differentiated experiments across Indian campuses. So it's a very, very vivid description we have got across. On the institutional outreach front, the various means and modes we see the campuses are using across the country, which we have tried to cluster into information dissemination modes, the conventional ones, the engagement programs which institutions are organizing, and engaged interactions which they ensue by various modes. So this is also very interesting. On the faculty front, there is a upfront recognition of the role of faculty in institutional advancement. There are engagement initiatives across. Empowerment exercises have been given. Even the private universities and campuses are divulging powers in faculty in administrative functions. Then there are certain expectations which are existing expectations and futuristic expectations, and certain understandings which the top decision makers are having about the role of faculty. So it's quite a widespread kind of analysis which has gone through in it too. Meeting out the global competition, how it is emerging, where improving the student experience and employability is one of the key concerns, then attracting and retaining quality faculty. So all these competition metrics, campuses have responded quite well. Institutional outcomes, we could cluster out in these 9 major things, that these are the institutional outcomes which campuses are looking for. As we are moving forward in our journey, more and more institutional outcomes are coming. Like in Chandigarh, one of the very passionate campuses, they were talking like building entrepreneurs and empowering the family businesses across should be one of the dominant institutional outcomes of higher education. So governance and compliance, how campuses are managing it across, this also became a part of it. Delivery, how the various delivery options, academic delivery, curriculum optimization, flexible terms, lots and lots of views came around that. About the role of information technology for institutional advancement, we could cluster these views and things into a cluster of admittance. There was an upfront admittance ki yes, there is a terrific role of information technology. Then there were application-oriented thought processes, how campuses of various hues have applied information technology. The impact, many of them have vividly described the impact which has had in their operational processes. And some are something off the mark remarks as well we have got in this quest. Then operational efficiency, interesting to know that top decision making across the country, we could cluster them into 20 key names and dimensions, or 20 key stakeholders which have come across through this survey. On the revenue growth front of it, there is a bit of dichotomy in terms of the top outcomes and all, because I will say only half of the institutions have somewhere said that revenue growth is their dominant focus. Many people have said that this priority does not exist on their campus footprint. So this is what I just wanted to present to you across.